So one thing I know for sure is that this community knows something about weddings. Some of you won't have to try very hard to put yourself into the wedding scene from the Gospel of John this morning. Maybe for others, you are a season or two away from wedding planning, but think back or ahead to the weddings that you've attended or planned. Weddings have a way of staying with us, the music, the toasts, the joy of two lives woven together. They remind us of hope and possibility, of love's power to unite and renew. And yet beneath the beauty of the moment, there's always a flurry of preparation. Behind the scenes, someone is setting the tables, arranging the flowers, and making sure that every detail is just so. There's an unspoken pressure to make it all perfect, to keep the celebration seamless and joyful. But what happens when something goes wrong? What happens when the wine runs out? In the Gospel of John, we are drawn into such a moment. I can see it now, the music spilling out into the warm evening air, laughter rising and falling like the waves of the sea. Lamps flicker on the edge of the courtyard, their golden light casting soft shadows on the stone walls. Every bride's dream come true. This wedding in Cana, like all weddings, is a moment of joy and promise, a gathering of friends and family to celebrate love and new beginnings. And like many of our own weddings, the best food and drink is served, and the wine flows freely, filling cups and warming hearts. That is, until it doesn't. Can you imagine the scene? In the kitchen, the servants whispering anxiously, the jars empty, the wine gone as the celebration teeters on the edge of embarrassment. Mary, watching from the edge of the gathering, catches the tension in the air. And her son stands nearby, quiet and observant. She turns to him. "They have no wine," she says, her tone, her look conveying to him what he already knows, that this isn't just about the wine. It's about the disgrace the family will face if they cannot provide for their guests. And then Jesus, meeting her gaze with both question and purpose, says, "Woman, what concern is that to you and me? My hour has not yet come." But Mary doesn't pay him any attention. She knows. She doesn't argue. She doesn't plead with him. Instead, she turns to the servants and says, "Do whatever he tells you." And then she steps back, waiting for the quiet miracle that she trusts is on its way. Jesus motions to the 6 great stone jars standing nearby. "Fill them with water," he instructs. The servants move quickly, their steps deliberate as they fill the jar after jar to the brim. "Now draw some out and take it to the steward," he says. Their hands hesitate for just a moment. Water. It's only water. But they obey, and as the steward tastes what they offer, I can imagine the way that the steward's face breaks into astonishment. "This is the best wine," he marvels, pulling the bridegroom aside. "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." In the quiet corners of this story, a miracle is unfolding. It's not announced with trumpets or thunder. It doesn't demand the attention of the crowd. It's a miracle that slips in almost unnoticed, like the best kind of gift, unexpected and abundant. This moment, this sign, is the inaugural act of Jesus' public ministry, the beginning of his revelation to the world. Beginnings tell a lot about who someone is. They tell us something essential about who we are, about the story that we are stepping into. And Jesus begins his ministry here, at a wedding. So what does this say about who Jesus is? It tells us first that Jesus' ministry is rooted in relationship and community. This isn't a solitary moment of grandeur or a public proclamation from a mountaintop. It's a celebration, a gathering of people, a moment of human connection. Jesus begins his work not by standing apart from the world, but by stepping fully into its joys and struggles. His ministry is about being with people, sharing in their lives, and offering grace in the midst of their ordinary moments. Second, this story reveals the abundance of God's kingdom. Jesus doesn't just solve the problem, he goes beyond what anyone could have imagined. Over 100 gallons of wine, the finest of wines, flowing freely. It's more than enough. It's extravagant. This is the nature of God's grace. It overflows. It's not measured out in teaspoons, but poured out with joyful abundance. And finally, this story is about transformation. Water becomes wine. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and it happens quietly, almost invisibly. This is how God works so often, behind the scenes, in the quiet places, turning what we have into more than enough. Transformation doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it's as simple and profound as water turned into wine. We hear this story now on the second Sunday of Epiphany because Epiphany is a season of revelations, of uncovering truths that have been there all along. It's a time when the light shines in unexpected places and we catch glimpses of who Jesus truly is. Each story we hear during these weeks peels back another layer, offering a deeper understanding of his mission, his heart, and his purpose. But Epiphany isn't just about seeing Jesus more clearly. It's also about seeing ourselves more clearly, ourselves more truly. Moments of epiphany in our own lives are rarely dramatic. They often come in the middle of ordinary days, in the midst of ordinary circumstances. Perhaps it's a conversation that opens your eyes to a new truth, or a moment of silence when you sense God's presence in a way you hadn't before. Maybe it's a season of struggle that, looking back, reveals a strength you didn't know you had. These are moments when the light shines, when what was hidden becomes clear. This story of the wedding at Cana is one of these moments. For the disciples, it's an unveiling. John tells us that Jesus revealed his glory and his disciples believed in him. They begin to see who he is, not just a teacher, not just Mary's son, but the one who brings abundance out of scarcity, who transforms the ordinary into the sacred, who reveals the extravagance of God. And it's not just Jesus who is revealed. In moments of epiphany, we also discover who we are when we encounter the light of Christ. It reflects back to us the truth of our own identity. We are beloved. We are called. We are invited to participate in God's work of transformation and grace. Think of the servants in this story. They're not the ones with the power or status. They're in the background, unnoticed by most of the guests. And yet they are the ones that Jesus invites to play a role in this miracle. They fill the jars. They carry the water. They act in faith, even when they don't fully understand what's happening. And through their obedience, they become part of the story of God's abundant grace. I wonder, where do you see yourself in this story? Maybe you feel like the servants, holding nothing but water, unsure how it could possibly be enough. Maybe you're like Mary, noticing the needs around you and trusting that God will make a way. Or perhaps you're in the crowd, unaware of the miracle, but drinking deeply of its joy. Wherever you are, the story invites us to live with trust and wonder. It invites us to believe that God can take the ordinary things we offer, our time, our love, our work, and transform them into something sacred, something life-giving. This is the heart of Jesus' ministry, and it's the heart of our calling as his disciples. We are invited to step into the work of relationship and community, to live with generosity and abundance, to trust in the quiet, transformative power of God's grace. We are called to be people of the feast, people who live in the joy and abundance of God's kingdom and share it with the world. The music in Cana plays on. The cups are filled and the celebration continues. And in the midst of it all, Jesus stands quietly, offering a sign of who he is and what he has come to do. He is the one who transforms. He is the one who overflows with grace. He is the one who meets us in our celebration and our struggles and turns them into something holy. May we live as people of the feast, trusting in the quiet miracles that unfold around and within us. May we embrace the moments of epiphany when Jesus is revealed to us and when we see ourselves more truly. And may we have the courage to offer what we have, knowing that in God's hands, even the simplest gift can become vessels of grace. Amen.